Welcome in. It is the Northside Baseball Podcast. He is Jason Ross. I'm Mitch Woodmeyer, talking anything and everything Chicago Cubs baseball. However you get the podcast, maybe it's our YouTube channel, maybe it's via Apple Podcast. We're always appreciative for anyone and everyone that tunes in. Bit of a roller coaster ride week for the Cubs, Jason, after taking a couple from the Rays. They lose 2 of 3 to Pittsburgh. All 3 games hung in the balance. Looked like the Cubs could have swept Pittsburgh, could have lost 2 like they did, could have won 2. Thankfully, they salvaged the series with a come-from-behind win after trailing 5-0 on Sunday. We are recording on a Monday for a Tuesday publish. We will talk some Phillies Cubs baseball. Of course, they're underway tonight in that series, but by the time you listen to that, Game 1 will have already started and concluded, but we are not privy to what has happened because we are recording beforehand. If you're watching via our YouTube channel, you can see the topics laid out to the right of the screen. We're going to start with Jameson Taillon. I know last week we started with Edward Cabrera. I kind of wanted to keep going down this track of starting pitchers one by one, Jason, and just pick your brain, get some of your early thoughts on Taillon. 5 home runs yielded in 3 starts, and I know Sunday's game was heavily wind-aided, if you will, against Pittsburgh. My worry would be, Jason, that if you take the wind part and push it to the side, I'm not saying ignore it because it mattered, but if you put it to the side, the worry I have is when I go back and I look at the home run that O'Neal Cruz hit off Jameson Taillon, it's an 84-mile-per-hour changeup that was almost directly down the middle of the plate. And then you had Brandon Lau hit 2 home runs. One was an 87-mile-per-hour cutter right down the middle, and then a 92-mile-per-hour fastball that was pretty much right down the middle. So to me, wind, certainly a problem. So was location for Jameson Taillon. First start, by the way, for him of the year against the Angels. Remember, the winds were blowing in at 20 miles per hour, which certainly helped him. So the Wrigley winds kind of going every which way these first couple of weeks. I'm not suggesting, hey, get rid of Jameson Taillon, he needs to go. Cade Horton's done for the year. Justin Steele's still rehabbing. Matthew Boyd's on the IL. Jameson Taillon, to be right now at this moment, he's not going anywhere. But when I also look and I see the 4-seamer average was 92.3 miles per hour last year, he used it 38% of the time. This year, Jason, it's averaging 91.4, so almost a full mile per hour down from last year, and he's still using it 29% of the time. Am I crazy in your mind to just be I wouldn't say I'm, panicking immensely, but I am a little bit concerned with what I've seen from Jameson Taillon, and it's not just because he gave up 3 home runs to Pittsburgh when the winds were blowing out at Wrigley on Sunday. There's other data that I'm seeing that makes me think, okay, coupled with what I saw this spring, I'm a little bit concerned about Jameson Taillon.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I've seen some people try to talk about, the win aided part and yeah, the first home run or the grand slam to Lau, the 372 that he hit, that was kind of weak or whatever. Maybe the wind aided that one. The other one, 442 feet. Sorry, that's not wind aided. That was a bomb. I mean, he hit it 113 miles an hour. I think looking at and I'm just going to double check it. I think it might have been the highest. Yeah, the second home run, the home run he hit in the 5th inning was 108.5 miles off. It was estimated 444. Sorry, that's not wind aided. He absolutely crushed that pitch. The grand slam, yeah, it was probably a little wind aided. It was 97.3 off the bat, 372 distance, home runs in 14 parks. And that's without the wind. Probably gave it some help. But he also had the kind of the added benefit of pitching on a cold night already. The wind giveth, the wind taketh.
Yeah.
It is what it is. The positives on Jameson Taillon is this. One, he gave the Cubs 6 really good innings yesterday. 1 bad inning, 5 good ones. He saved the bullpen. The bullpen's been beat up, and he saved the bullpen for that. He came back. He played. He took it on the chin, and he handled himself like a professional does. He ended the game with 13 whiffs. That was 1 more whiff than Bubba Chandler. Bubba Chandler throws really hard and really good stuff. He struck out 10 hitters yesterday. So that's the good stuff. On the bad stuff, you've kind of got the home run issues that we have to mention. That's a real issue right now. And we need to pay attention to those things. So there's good things and there's bad things. If you want to talk about, another kind of I guess kind of put it in the put it in whatever basket you want. The Pirates are not like a super strikeout heavy team. They sit right now 11th, the 11th worst strikeout percentage, but it's 23.7. We're not talking about like a massive number. I think if maybe he struck out 10 White Sox who have a 27.9% K percentage, maybe we're probably talking about maybe some more luck. So it's kind of hard to tell as of right now, how we're feeling about Jameson. The velocity was up a little bit yesterday, fractional miles per hour, 91.7 as opposed to 91.4. So maybe we're seeing some rebuild of that velo. But yeah, the location then kind of is an issue. Is he rearing back to find velo, and that's why he's leaving it over the zone? Because we see that with pitchers who start to lose their stuff. They try to find ways to squeeze out every inch that they can, and they get into bad mechanical situations. They pipe pitches. So I think where we're at right now is like a wait and see. The Cubs don't have an immediate fix for the situation, even if it's not good. But with Steele coming back eventually and Boyd coming back eventually, they're going to have to make a hard decision at some point. And while the whiffs are good and the strikeouts are good, the home runs are bad. And which one it goes is kind of hard to tell right now. Is the home run the noise, or is the strikeout the noise? And that's kind of where we don't know right now. Like, is he getting a little bit lucky with the strikeouts, or is he getting unlucky with the home runs?
Yeah, that's what you want to figure out.
Yeah, and that's what you're going to have to figure out. And we're going to need more than 3 Jameson Taillon starts to get there. We do. We need more information than where we're at. So little concerned on Taillon, not overly concerned yet, but I think something to kind of put in our back pocket. Remember, the strikeouts were good, the home runs were bad. Which direction is it? Because I don't think that both things can be true. I don't think that he can be giving up the home runs that he is giving up right now and keep striking hitters out. Like, it's going to kind of go one or the other. Like, the strikeouts are either going to tell the real story of Jameson Taillon, that the sweeper yesterday was fantastic. It was a really good pitch for him. He got a lot of whiffs on the sweeper. That the whiffs are trying to tell us what's the true thing. That Jameson Taillon's probably okay, but the home runs are telling a different story. And I don't think it can be both.
Yeah, well said. You mentioned the stat line for him a couple of times, and look, he gets, for as much as I just said, I'm a little bit worried about what I'm seeing through my lens. The dude gets credit for gutting that one out, because rare are the stat lines, Jason, for a pitcher where you're going 6 innings, yielding 6 runs, but striking out 10. You don't see too many of those stat lines, hardly ever, from a starting pitcher. So we'll kind of just, I like your method of wait and see. And you don't have an option right now to directly pivot to anyways, nor should, I think, 3 starts in, Taillon have that short of a leash. So you kind of just see where it goes with JMO. And but yeah, 5 home runs and 3 starts. They both, all 5 came in the last 2 starts. But yesterday, partially wind aided. I think it's very fascinating what you brought up, because when I looked at the home runs he gave up last year, remember that stretch last year where he was giving up home runs too, and it came more early towards the middle of the year, and then he was good at the end of the year. And I went back and I looked at a lot of those home runs and the placement. And this year, those 3 yesterday, Jason, like last year, he was giving up homers. But when I went back and looked, it was like location wasn't a huge issue on a lot of them. The 3 yesterday, I mean, they're almost all just center cut right. Like, they're almost all right there. And that's when I was like, why is this happening? Like, he's striking out 10, but the location on the home runs is so, like, he's putting it on a plate. And so I think it's fascinating that you bring up the idea of maybe he's trying to rear back, get that extra, ounce of velocity, but he's costing himself location on those 3 home runs. And I think that's something that he and the Cubs have to try to figure out.
Yeah, and looking at so I just pulled up his Savant page, which I think it kind of give us some information as to, kind of what we're seeing from Taillon. And, we're trying to figure out, mechanically, what's he kind of doing in there. And one of the things that I found that was really interesting is that, well, his arm angle is the same, 46 degrees. So we're not seeing like a weird mechanical thing there. His movement patterns of all of his pitches have changed. And that's awkward. That's weird. And it's trying to figure out the noise. So if we look at his fastball last year, his fastball had more arm side run than it does this year. So it was going to be kind of like bearing in on a righty from a right-handed pitcher. And this year we're seeing less arm side run, but more induced vertical break. And that's that fighting gravity. So his fastball is fighting gravity more. In a better way, kind of like a Shota Imanaga fastball, where it's got more rise to the pitch, but it has less arm side run. And then if we look at his fastball placement, his fastball placement last year in terms of 2025, he was somebody who was hitting that upper third. So if he gets more IVB, that's a pitch that you want upper third more, but he's catching a lot of the plate with that pitch, and kind of to a righty, he's throwing it kind of away from them. So it's kind of sitting on that outer third of the plate. If he's going to get more IVB, you kind of want to hit that upper third a little bit more often. And he's just not doing it. So I'm not quite certain, exactly what we should be making of all of these things. We probably just don't have enough data to really, kind of say where we're at. But these are just kind of interesting things that I've been noticing with him. He's getting less horizontal break. He's getting more vertical break. And those are weird things, especially without an arm angle change. So he's kind of a mystery right now. There's just a lot of little data points that we're getting, and I don't think we have a big enough sample size to say exactly what we've got.
Northside Baseball Podcast. He is Jason Ross. I'm Mitch Whitmire, talking anything and everything Chicago Cubs baseball. Let's sort of stick with bugaboos so far and kind of wonder aloud what your biggest Cubs issue, or what you think their biggest issue is so far, because I know it's April and this thing starts in late March, but 15 games in, the Cubs are just 7-8. There's obviously plenty of baseball left to be played. But knowing who they played early on, Jason, had you told me they were 7-8, I wouldn't have been like alarmed, panicked, shocked, but I would have been like, that's a little surprising given that they played the Nationals and the Pirates and the Angels, and the Rays aren't expected to be a contender. In Cleveland, usually pretty good, but Cleveland's not, the Dodgers or the Yankees or a team like that. And so knowing who they've played so far and seeing that they're 7-8, I think a lot of fans thought it'd be at least a little bit better, but maybe we're being nitpicky. And so I'm wondering, I'll ask you first before I give you we might have the same one, because again, we don't go over this together, but what to you has been the biggest issue for the Cubs so far, whether it's rotation, bullpen, something offensively, defensively? What to you has been the biggest issue?
People aren't going to like this answer because they never like this answer. Bad luck, man. So you look at their data right now. They're sitting at a 311 WOBA, but they have a 321 xWOBA. To put that in perspective, their WOBA right now ranks them 16th, but their xWOBA ranks them 10th. Their WRC plus ranks them 17th. So we've got some bad sequencing going on right now and some bad luck. Their BABIP is a 269. But then if you go into their StatCast data, their barrel percentage, they're sitting at 11th. If we're looking at their launch angle, they're at 5, but their ISO is 131. So they're not hitting any home runs, even though they're hitting the ball in the air the way that you want them to. If you look at their exit velocity, it is 6th. So they're hitting the ball in the air. They're hitting it hard. They've got a good, good launch angle. They've got good barrel rate, and yet it's not happening. Their expected batting average right now is, again, much lower than their actual batting average, 224, 250, 237. They're slugging, and this is the biggest one. All right, so if we're looking at their slugging versus their X slug, 357, 392. They should be hitting more home runs, and it's not happening. Michael Busch isn't hitting home runs. Pete Crow Armstrong's not hitting home runs. The ball just isn't getting out. I mean, Moises Ballesteros is like the best home run threat right now, and he's a 15 home run guy. I think we've got some bad luck, some bad sequencing. Baseball's baseball. There was somebody was upset at the Cubs if they would have lost on Sunday, and thankfully they came back and they won. But 6-9 stretches happen all the time. The Dodgers had a 6-9 stretch between May 4th to May 19th last year, but we didn't talk about that. I was kind of thinking about it, like, this is just kind of my shower thoughts with everything. But I think baseball is the hardest sport for us to be immersed in the entire league versus our own team, because we don't get time to breathe. You think about a football game. you have at least a week between every game. Sometimes 2 weeks if you have a bye week, or extra time if you play Thursday and then you play Sunday. And with that, you have so much extra time to watch other teams and other games. You have time to take in the national media and the discourse. So like a 4-game losing streak for a team doesn't go under your radar because we're only talking one game a week. Even basketball and hockey, we were talking about those things. A back-to-back is like a big event, to the point where like guys in NBA don't play. In hockey, your goalie can't start 2 games in a row. And there's always like time off. There's time to breathe and look around the league. Look at the Cubs. The Cubs literally played an extra innings game on Saturday. They played a game yesterday that once again went to the 9th, and we had to walk it off once again. And then they're in Philadelphia again tonight. They're going to play tonight. They're going to play Tuesday. Like they're just going to keep playing games, and our ability to take in what's going on in the rest of the league probably isn't happening. Like, did you know that the Yankees right now have a 93 WRC plus on the season? Because I didn't. I just looked on it at Fangraphs, and I know a lot about baseball. I didn't know the Yankees couldn't hit this year. And
they started like 8-2, and now they've been sinking. Yeah.
Right. So like, we don't have time to take these things in. So yeah, the Cubs are 7-9 right now. It's kind of a bummer. It's a bummer that they lost to the Pirates 2 out of 3. It's a bummer that they lost 2 out of 3 to the Nationals. Like it kind of sucks. You look at their schedule and you would have hoped that they would have won more games here. They got a tough run coming up. Philadelphia is not easy. The Dodgers are not going to be easy, and they're going to be seeing these teams right now. But I think our biggest issue, and I told you, people aren't going to like it. People don't like the answer of bad luck, or it's going to even out, or it's 2 weeks. But I think a lot of it comes down to, it's a couple weeks of baseball. Baseball does this. We're going to have times where the ball isn't landing, and you can see that our expected data is all better than our regular data. And I think the weather at Wrigley Field's not helping, particularly right now. They've had weird wind. They've had cold nights. They spent that whole weekend in Cleveland that sucked on the weather. So like, the weather's not kind right now, and it's not an excuse, but it's also an explanation for what's happening. And there's going to be other days where the wind giveth the Cubs things, and I think overall they're going to be fine. If you're looking for like an actual issue that I really see, like a real one, we can kind of come look at maybe some of their like pitching, but even then, the Cubs xFIP right now is fantastic. I think so right now, their xFIP is 10th. It's pretty good. They're pitching well. Their ERA is what, 3.43. They're 6th in the league in terms of run prevention. And I'll kind of finish it off with my favorite stat of the day. The Cubs have the 6th best run differential in baseball right now. 6th best run differential. So if we want to sit here and there are nitpicks, we can find nitpicks. I'm sure you've got some things that you can find that the Cubs can always do better. That's not to say, the Cubs are perfect right now, everything's great. But mostly, when I look at all the data and I look at our expected data being lower than our actual data, when I look at our run differential, I think the red herring right now is the standings, the win and loss record. And I think the true talent of the Cubs is there. So that's kind of where I'm at. I know that's not an answer that people are going to like. They always want kind of the real, like I can't just be that. Honestly, sometimes it can.
Yeah, I'll give an answer that I think people will be more pleased with, I guess.
I'm sure you will.
Mine is, but it kind of, I was going to add a caveat to it, but runners in scoring position, they were 4 for 35 with runners in scoring position against the Pirates. Now it was good to see Michael Busch come up clutch after he's been in somewhat of a slump since opening day. Carson Kelly, of course, had the walk-off, so you got one from Busch and one from Carson Kelly, and you hope they kind of roll that into this week. So you can look at it from one angle and say, man, 4 for 35 with runners in scoring position against the Pirates, and they had time after time after time in Saturday's loss to push through with runners in scoring position and couldn't. But when I'm watching those at-bats, Jason, with runners in scoring position, a lot of them, whoever's up, Ian Happ had a couple of them. He hits the ball right on the screws, right to the right fielder on one occasion. He hits a liner right on the screws, right to an infielder. And so it wasn't, to me, I haven't broken down all 35 of the at-bats with runners in scoring position, but watching that series this weekend against Pittsburgh, was very frustrating to see him not come up with those hits. But a lot of the at-bats were extremely competitive and the ball's being put in play, and they're just hitting them right at someone. So to me, there's a difference. You have to break down how they got to be 4 for 35 with runners in scoring position, and few and far between were the uncompetitive at-bats where guys are flailing at pitches out of the zone, striking out, rolling over a ground ball. More so, it kind of ties into your luck thing where guys are hitting it on the screws, but it's right at someone. And so I just hope and baseball is weird in this way, but you hope the at-bat that Michael Busch gave you late in that game to tie it. And then the Carson Kelly walk-off, that guys like that can roll that into this week for the Cubs, because the schedule these next couple of weeks for sure certainly won't get easier. So if I had to say, what do I think is the biggest issue right now? It's in that series against Pittsburgh, it was runners in scoring position and the lack of contributions, but the at-bats were good in large part. So I can't sit here and, pound the table and tell you that the at-bats were horrendous, because for the most part they weren't. Were there a couple that were less than ideal? Sure. But that's where I would go with the Cubs. I'm still, and maybe I'm just biased and I got the goggles on. The runners in scoring position number against Pittsburgh was terrible, but I didn't think the at-bats were necessarily terrible.
And if we're also looking at it here, the Cubs have the 6th most plate appearances with runners in scoring position. Do we really expect that this is going to be a team that has a 90 WRC plus with runners in scoring position? Hell no. That is down there with the Rockies, the White Sox, the Cardinals, who, listen, I know the Cardinals have won some baseball games, still don't think that's a very good baseball team. The Pirates, the Reds, they're down there with the Royals. These are teams that we're not supposed to have good offenses, and that's where their WRC plus is with runners in scoring position right now. And I just don't think that that's going to stay, right? I don't. I think this is a top 10 offense in baseball. If it's 7th, if it's 10th, you quibble, figure out where you want to put them. It's somewhere in that top 10. They were a top 6 scoring team last year, and the main changes is, Tucker out, Bregman in, and I'm sorry, that's not going to drop you from like 6th to 14th. Kyle Tucker's a good hitter. So's Alex Bregman. They're going to be fine. So I think when we look at it, I think they've got some sequencing issues, which is really just luck. You get a double, a ground ball, and a fly ball. That's a run. You get a ground ball, a fly ball, a double, and then a strikeout. And now all of a sudden it's not a run. It's sequencing. Sometimes you just have to have things happen in the right order for a run to happen. And that you can't always control the way that those things happen in the grand scheme of things, like in the big picture. In the micro, each at bat it can be controlled by the hitter, but in the macro, if you get 6 hits but they're not sequenced in the right way, that's much worse than if they're sequenced in the correct way. They're getting a lot of guys on base, and I think that's the most important thing. You keep getting guys on base, ball's going to start falling. And if you weren't getting people on base, I would have concerns, because, when we were talking about the other teams who are struggling with runners in scoring position, you have the White Sox. They have the 3rd lowest amount of times right there. The Royals, 22nd. The Baltimore Orioles, they're also in that area. They're 23rd. But then you look up at the Cubs, and they're sitting there with the 6th most runners on base and the 10th worst WRC plus in those situations. I think the number that I'm going to look at is the amount of people getting on base versus the outcomes right now without it. You keep putting guys on base, things will happen.
I'm trying to find it right now. It just made me think of this. Here it is. Bobby Witt Jr. has reached base 30 times this season, and he's been left stranded 29 of those 30 times. Do you know how crazy that is? You talk about somebody who's being left on base. That's crazy. So yeah, I think the Cubs are going to be all right. You brought up the pitching as a whole, Jason, earlier a few minutes ago, and I wanted to talk about the rotation specifically, because we're looking at a picture where you haven't had Matthew Boyd, you don't have Cade Horton, you haven't had Justin Steele yet entering yesterday's game, entering Sunday's contest against Pittsburgh, the Cubs were top 3 in rotation ERA, number 1 in batting average on balls put in play, and also number 1 in fewest hits allowed. And I think it's been quiet with the applause towards the rotation so far, because there have been more struggles overall for the team from a win-loss perspective than there have been like joyous occasions. But I think this rotation deserves some credit for what they've pieced together among like pure chaos. You lose Cade Horton, you lose Matthew Boyd, both first starts in, and Boyd's going to come back at some point, but Cade Horton's now done for the year. This thing, I mean, you trust Colin Ray to fill in. You trust Javier Assad to fill in. You want Shota Imanaga to help pick things up, Edward Cabrera. But this thing could have gone off the tracks, and I don't think anyone would have blamed the Cubs. The rotation has been pretty damn good, man, so far a couple weeks in. And again, just like I'm not going to overreact to, like when I was talking about the runners and scoring position number, I'm not going to overreact to the starting rotation and expect that to be the norm the rest of the way. I hope it is. But I do think they deserve some kudos for really keeping things on track. When that word chaos I used, it's been chaos all around them with the rest of the rotation.
Yeah, they've really battled. And man, even if we're just not like, give some credit to the bullpen too. I know it hasn't been perfect always in the bullpen, but they're down Maton. They're down Harvey. Riley Martin. This is somebody I was hitting up last year. I don't know if you remember, but I talked at the deadline, and I said this a few times. If I was a team and I was looking for a throw-in, Riley Martin would have been the first guy on my list. I would have circled him, and I would have said, that's who I want. And Riley Martin has looked fantastic. I mean, just a really, really useful piece for the Chicago Cubs. So, and on one hand, it is what it is on some things. But, if we look at we're just looking at the rotation right now. Considering that they lost Cade Horton, they're battling really hard. The bullpen's been finding guys to kind of fill out a couple of people in the bullpen. And I think the pitching staff deserves a lot of credit. It's kind of like Jameson Taillon yesterday. I mean, he did not have a good start through 2 innings, to the point where I think a lot of people were probably ready to turn that game off with the grand slam. And it was just like, that's enough baseball for today. And he came back, he threw 4 more innings right after that, kept the Cubs in it. Ben Brown has been good out of the bullpen.
Careful. People don't want to hear that either.
Yeah. People don't want to hear that.
I'm still a Ben Brown believer.
Me too. I still like Ben Brown. I wrote an article on him the other day. I think there's still a good pitcher there. I do think that the Cubs are doing well. If you want to find kind of an issue with the Chicago Cubs, and if we're looking at their rotation, we're kind of back at the same place where we've been for a while, where the rotation is a bunch of guys who throw really, really, really soft. They're 28th in velocity out of the rotation. We came in this year, it was like, we got Cade, we got Edward Cabrera, we're going to really start, kind of throwing a little bit harder. But right now with the rotation, kind of right back to where we were, where it's like, well, you've got Edward Cabrera, who's one guy who throws hard. And then it's Javier Assad, Colin Ray, and Shota, and, Matthew Boyd isn't in there right now, but he's not going to throw super hard either. And you just kind of look at the rotation and you're just like, we're kind of right back to where we were on that end. But I think we came into this season thinking like, so we got Cade, we got Edward, Wiggins is coming along. Wiggins is hurt something in his arm. He got pulled from his last start. They were talking about a little bit of an injury there. Who knows what we're talking about there? But like that dream of like the 3 guys who throw like 98 plus from the right side just doesn't feel like that's kind of happening right now. It's not really materializing. Like best laid plans. And if you kind of want like kind of a back push on that, the 93 miles an hour, actually it's really tied for second to last because the Royals have the same velo there. So I think we were hoping to see more velocity there. It's not the end all be all. The Miami Marlins have the 3rd highest velocity and they have a 4.57 ERA right now. So like, it's not like velo doesn't always mean everything, but I think we kind of hope for a little bit more of that and we're not getting it. So that's one kind of thing I see with the rotation, but I also don't want to take it away from them. When you have a rotation right now and you're dealing with Taillon, Assad, and Ray as 3/5 of it, and you're still finding yourself in positive situations, those guys are battling. They're putting the Cubs in a position where once maybe the offense sequencing works out, once the ball starts landing a little bit more, once they kind of break through a little bit more with runners on base, they'll win games that way. And I think that's where I'm kind of feeling on the rotation. The rotation is putting the situation where if the offense shows up, they're going to win baseball games, even against tough teams.
We'll finish up. Tough team, you would think, the Philadelphia Phillies, but we enter play tonight again. We are recording on a Monday for a Tuesday release of the recording. So the Cubs will already have played 1 game of this 3-game set against the Philadelphia Phillies. But you talk about tough teams. The Phillies was supposed to be the Mets, still could be the Mets. Phillies again after that, then the Dodgers, then the Padres. It is a tough stretch coming up for the Cubs, but it starts on this Monday night against the Phillies. You have Christopher Sanchez against Javier Assad. Both teams 7-8 entering play tonight. Cubs and Phillies both one game below 500. One thing that popped out at me, Jason, when I was doing some housekeeping and looking into what's going on with the Phillies so far this year, I talked about the Cubs struggling offensively with runners in scoring position against Pittsburgh. Here's one for you. In the last 45 innings played, the Phillies have scored runs in 3 innings. So the Phillies, in their last 45 innings played, have put up a 0 in 42 of those innings, which is
no bueno.
That's hard to do too, man. That's hard to do.
Baseball's weird, man. Baseball's a weird sport.
Now watch both teams put up 5+ in each of these 3 games or something like that. But people want to complain and bicker a little bit about the Cubs' numbers with runners in scoring position. Man, the Phillies have put up a goose egg in 42 of their last 45 innings at the plate, which isn't too much better. So what are your kind of thoughts, feelings going into this series against Philadelphia, knowing you got 3 with them here, and then you have 3 with the Mets, and then 4 more with the Phillies starting next Monday. So a lot of Phillies jammed in these next, 10 days for the Chicago Cubs.
Yeah, tonight we're going to get a treat. Christopher Sanchez is really, really good. Probably maybe the most slept on pitcher in baseball. Like, we probably don't talk enough about how good Christopher Sanchez is. Just looking at him last year, 6.4 FWAR, 250 ERA, 277 xFIP. I mean, this, like, in terms of lefties, it's kind of like Terry Skubal and then like Sanchez. Like, Sanchez might be the second best lefty in baseball. He's legitimately disgustingly good. So far this year, he is striking out 1 out of every 3 hitters. 1 out of every 3 hitters is striking out against Christopher Sanchez right now. Again, to put it in just a little bit more perspective, we talk about FWAR and FWAR isn't like, it's not a silver bullet stat. It's not perfect, but in 3 starts, he is already up to 0.8 FWAR. If we just a little bit of quick like napkin math right here, just to figure this out. I'm kind of curious how many WAR he's on pace for right now. So give me 1 second while I do some.
You do the math. There should be
he's on pace for about 8.5 WAR.
Oh.
To put that in perspective, he is on pace for a disgusting season right now. He's good. He's so good. So I know the impetus for fans is going to be when they don't score more than 2 runs against this guy. The offense and everything. Man, this guy nobody scores against this guy. So, like, if the Cubs score a couple runs off Christopher Sanchez, that's awesome. Assad's going to need to be on his game tonight. This isn't going to be an easy game. Thankfully, the Phillies offense kind of sucks right now too. 92 WRC plus on the season. It's below the Cubs. They don't have as good X data. The Cubs have been out hitting the Phillies both in actual results and in expected results. So, like, advantage Cubs offense, but like, I mean, you'd have a hard time saying that like Christopher Sanchez probably isn't the best player on the field right now, because he is. Like, they have the best player, and he's going to dictate their game. So, if you're the Cubs, you're kind of hoping that you run into 1 or 2 of them on the day. I would expect nothing from any of the lefties. And if you look at the lineup, it's PCA is the only lefty, I think, in the entire thing right now. And I mean, Christopher Sanchez is just gnarly. If there's a positive in his small starts this year, righties have hit him pretty well. 374 WOBA against, talking 10 innings, and haven't seen a lot of them. And last year righties hit better than lefties. I mean, left-handed hitters just have no chance against him. I kind of expect PCA to really struggle tonight. Don't think he's going to look very good. I would guess
you're talking into the future too. That's what the fun about this,
Yeah,
people are going to listen to this. The game's already going to have happened, and
it's already.
You're on the line to be right or wrong.
I'm on the line. I'll say PCA is not going to do anything against Christopher Sanchez. He's going to have some ugly swings. If the Cubs end up winning today, I would guess that the 2 guys who kind of lead the offensive charge is. You're either going to have a situation where like Carson Kelly and Seiya Suzuki run into a couple,
maybe Matt Shaw,
or it's like a Shaw, Nico Horner, like slap fest stealing bases. Like, that's it kind of feels like it's going to be one or the other. Like, Nico Horner is going to like slap one. steals second. Seiya Suzuki's going to hit a home run. That's going to be your 2 runs. Maybe tack on one against the bullpen. You win like 3-1. That's kind of like your best case scenario tonight, I think, for the Cubs. That's not being mean negative. Like
Sanchez just good.
Sanchez is just ridiculously good. Righties hit 11 home runs off of him last year. You can find a home run if you're a righty every so often. So, I would say those kind of right-handed hitters are the kind of like, those are the guys. I would say Seiya Suzuki, Carson Kelly, maybe Dansby Swanson. He's looked pretty good. But yeah, it's probably either going to be like a slap fest, steal some bases, or it's going to be, guys run into him. I'll also make a prediction that PCA tries to lay down a bunt with 2 strikes on Christopher Sanchez. That's the kind of night that you're going to need from PCA. And if he connects on it, he's going to be on first base and he's going to be able to steal. I don't expect him to do much against Sanchez before then, but weirder things have happened. Only 1 lefty hit a home run against him last year. I love Pete. Don't think Pete's going to be the one.
And then looking ahead, you have Colin Ray and Aaron Nola, a couple of veterans on Tuesday, and then Wednesday to finish up the series, a battle of the lefties, Shota Imanaga against Luzardo scheduled to go. So it should be a fascinating series. And then Cubs will see the Phillies again next week for 4 at Wrigley Field. Anything else you want to wrap up on, Jason?
No, I think we're kind of at that point in the season right now where the Cubs are, where I think vibes were pretty low midday yesterday from Cubs fans, and it feels like the Cubs are probably owed a series that they don't deserve to win. On paper, if you look on paper, the Phillies series is kind of tough. It's kind of a tricky series to come around. You figure, on paper, big advantage Phillies pitching Monday, probably advantage Phillies pitching Tuesday. Aaron Nola, he wasn't good last year, but had much better expected data than his raw data. Looking at his actual data this year, he's looking pretty good. His stuff is back up. Stuff plus is back up on shapes. Velo's at 92, careers at 92.7. Strikeout rate's good. He's getting a good deal of ground balls. It kind of feels like Aaron Nola on paper better than Colin Ray. But then it kind of feels like this might be a series that the Cubs steal. They're coming off of a good feel yesterday. Maybe they come out and they pick up 3 off of Sanchez early. They pick up a win tonight, and then they find another one and they win a 3-game set that I think probably in the 4th inning yesterday, a lot of Cubs fans weren't feeling it. So I'll go and I'll say that I think maybe the Cubs kind of surprised some people this series, and they pick up 2 out of 3. The Mets are in kind of a weird place.
Oh my gosh, you want to talk about a fan base that's already jumping ship?
On
this season. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I know. I was watching. Tangentially. I don't know if you saw this yesterday. But the amazing Gary Sanchez throw. To Kyle Harrison at first base.
Hit him in the leg, didn't he?
Oh, smoked it to him too. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, I saw it.
It came up across my feed, and I saw a great content creator who was just phenomenal, talk over it. But he came back up through my feed, and this is why I brought it up. And it was complaining about Francisco Lindor. Just talking about it just watching Mets fans flip out about Francisco Lindor of all players. I mean, this is a phenomenal baseball player. This is a guy who over his last 4 seasons is averaging over 6 wins a year. One of the best baseball players just on the freaking planet, Francisco Lindor, and they're already complaining about his mental lapses and boneheaded plays. If we're 16 games into the season and your impetus is Francisco Lindor is the problem in the New York Mets, which I get it, not a great season start, 75 WRC plus right now. It's not really going all that well. Get a grip, Mets fans. You're going to be fine. You've got a Hall of Fame talent who has legitimately been one of the best baseball players on the freaking planet for the last half of a decade. On top of everything that he did in Cleveland before he showed up to the Mets. I think a lot of Mets fans need to get a grip. They're a very good team. That's going to be a tough spot for the Cubs coming in there. But you're going to play good teams all season. So it is what it is. That's going to be a tough series. The Mets are good, but it feels like it's already shaping up of like two really anxious kind of fan bases that need to rein in it a little bit. It's April 13th. This happens. It happens. We'll be okay. But yeah, talking about, living in a bubble. If you're not paying attention to the Mets right now, the Mets fandom is not in a good place.
I remember the Mets opening day chased Paul Skeens. He didn't even make it out of the first inning, which I don't think that's ever happened for Paul Skeens. And then the following day or their following game, Luis Robert, who they acquired in the offseason, hit a walk-off 2-run or 3-run homer. Doesn't matter. It was a walk-off homer for Luis Robert. Mets are 2-0. They chased Paul Skeens. They went on a walk-off with one of their newly acquired players, and all is right in the world. And now they've lost 5 in a row. They're sitting at 7-9, and the sky is falling for the Metropolitans, apparently, if you ask most of their fan base. Cubs at 7-8, Phillies, Mets, then Phillies again coming up on the schedule. He is Jason Ross. I am Mitch Widmeyer. This has been another edition of the Northside Baseball Podcast.